Welcome, everybody, to our latest episode of THREATCON1 Podcast, the place to be to talk about emerging threats with the people who matter. Patrick, how are you doing today, buddy?
What's up? I'm doing great, man.
All right.
It's 50 degrees here in Michigan, which is t-shirt weather.
All right. I went with the jean jacket today, which, as you can see, has some THREATCON1 branding on it.
Nice.
But more importantly, forget about us. Let's welcome Tyler Shields, Principal Analyst, Omdia. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom. Good to see you both. How you doing, Patrick? Good to see you again, my friend.
Great. Always good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you, man. We've got so much to dig into today. We have just topics flowing out of everything and every place. But, Tyler, give the audience a little idea of who you are, what you do, what's shaking, what's cool, and we'll dig into some fun stuff.
Yeah, it's a funny conversation because I can easily go down a bunch of different paths with this. And when people ask me what I do or who I am, I often tailor it to the audience because I've got such a weird background. But I spent the first half of my career, well over a decade, in the offensive security side as a paid pen tester in the 90s and early 2000s. So I have that little hair and I go back that far. I've also done product ownership, product management. I was an analyst at Forrester Research for a while, then somehow became an accidental CMO at a couple of cybersecurity startups that were relatively successful. And most recently, feel free to laugh at that. It's fine. And most recently, I'm an analyst principal analyst with Omdia Research. I do a lot of fun little side things here and there. Most recently, where I worked closely with Tom on some projects as a adjunct professor at the business school at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So, like I said, I do a lot of stuff.
Super cool. Yeah, man, you have a really interesting background with the different sort of directions that you moved in from research to actual to as almost like an analyst operator, pen testing, and then analyst twice over. So give us an idea. What's more fun, working on the vendor side or working as an analyst for an analyst organization like Omdia?
They're very, very different. I'm going to give you the cop-out answer and tell you I can't really pick which one's more fun. But it should be telling when everything is said and done where I'm working now, where I choose to work now, is an analyst role for a reason, right? I really enjoy the academic nature of what an analyst does. A good analyst does. There's a lot of bad ones out there, but what the good ones do is very academic in nature, very researchy, hey, let's try to predict the future by looking at the past and looking at how trends have occurred. And that's super fun for me. And the best part about being an analyst is I get to work with so many startups and well-established companies in the markets that I cover, from a strategic positioning vantage point, from how to build the business all the way through to, more direct marketing efforts like messaging, positioning, things like that. So I actually love the analyst role. I'm an analyst right now for a reason.
I love it. And you're having fun, right? I mean, I've gotten to the point at 50 where I'm kind of like, if I'm not having fun, I got to do something else, or I should go do something else. Life's too short. You got to have some fun with what you're doing. I mean, Patrick and I certainly have a blast when we get guests like you on here and just get to sort of pick your brain on some things and just kind of kick it. For you, right? You're covering some different areas like risk reduction, exposure management, really hot areas in the cyber market. Is there a super hot thing, singular thing that you're seeing right now you're just all right, this is on fire?
I mean, we're going to get into this, I'm sure, in this conversation, because it wouldn't be a podcast without the magic two letters of AI popping up. Easy button answer is that AI is completely transforming and changing how every cybersecurity process, technology, tool, everything operates. What I will say is I'm not yet fully baked on the broader AI taking over the world kind of stuff, although I think it is going to. What excites me, I think, going into 2026 is really centered on AI, more applied AI, and reinventing the processes and the tools that we use today to make those processes and tools better. What I'm excited longer term is that revolutionary kind of pie in the sky of just talking to the air and having things getting done, right? But
Right.
it's kind of hard it's kind of hard to see how those things materialize. Look, I've lived through a handful of these waves before, right? And as have you, because you just gave away your age there, Tom. But we saw the coming of cloud, we saw the coming of smartphones, and when you start to see those things, you don't see the change until the change is there. It's really kind of hard. Like if you think back to when smartphones became a thing, there was nothing, and then holy smokes, it's like everybody has an app for everything within like a year. And I think you're going to find a transformational, bigger AI story that is very similar, where it's like, we're using applied stuff to change technologies at a fundamental level for a few years, and then all of a sudden, holy smokes, literally everything just acts in a totally different way.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm seeing the hot stuff. To directly answer your question from a cyber vantage point, threat and exposure management is massive right now. As you mentioned, I think finding ways to reduce risk in an automated way is huge. And then I'm very excited about offensive security technologies and how offensive security technologies and risk reduction or exposure management technologies can work together to reduce risk faster.
So interesting, because I mean, for the longest time we were hearing the predictive, moniker a lot in security prior to AI. Like, what can you do on a predictive level? What's really interesting is taking that topic of offensive security and maybe looking at that. That's actually more of like a proactive thing, right? It's a proactive discipline where you're going and really trying to turn the tables a little bit in terms of what you're seeing, trying to observe things early, observe them often with some context. Give us an idea of kind of what you're seeing on the offensive side, because I mean, it's certainly it's probably one of the most interesting areas of cyber right now.
Yeah, no, I think you brought up the key thing there, and that's the predictive and proactive. I'll use those two terms semi-interchangeably, even though we could argue that they're not. But that's a huge piece of it, right? Like, the interesting thing about AI is AI brings one thing to the table that we've never had before, and that's theoretically infinite speed, right? So if we think about anything that was being done in cyber, whether it's exploit creation, whether it's discovery, whether it's whatever, right? Weaponization, or even just attack processes, we can essentially make those infinite speed and run 24/7. And when that happens, how does that completely flip cyber on its head? You can't just react anymore, because now we're reacting to an infinite number of attackers operating at infinite speed.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, how do we completely rethink how we do security? Well, we really kind of have to get predictive, and we kind of have to get proactive, and we have to simultaneously increase the defensive speed to match. And I know that's the arms race everybody's talking about right now, but if you don't, we're cooked. We're overwhelmed, right? So the only way to do that is to start taking in large quantities of data, being very, very smart about the AI that we apply to it, and pulling that thread of speed and predicting things as soon as they happen and fixing things as soon as they happen. So if we find an exposure, we don't put it into a queue in Jira and fix it in a week, because it's already exploited. Mm-hmm. We absolutely have to fix it immediately. And so I think in the next 36 months, 3 years, we'll start to see the technologies of auto remediation is becoming mandatory. Fixing problems as soon as they pop up is becoming mandatory. And this is all predictive. The cool thing about the offensive stuff is offensive to me provides one key thing, and that's better prioritization to the predictive side of the coin.
Interesting.
So if we're going to fix a problem, we need to know which ones to fix first, because infinite speed is theoretical. We're not there yet. So we do need to still prioritize. And how do we know that? Well, threat intel data of what's being exploited in the wild, where the weaponization is, where we actually have potential exposures that exist in the wild that match to those threats, right? Yep. And then we fix those first. So I think offensive and defensive in the next year or two have to come together. They have to blend together. And then offensive also provides validation that defensive even fixed the problem, right? So I think these two things start to work much tighter together in the next year or two.
Yeah, I think generally you're right. The faster, quicker, aspect, any of the tooling, that I'm working with or we've been working with, there's different opportunities of where you can apply it. And then I think the other aspect is similar to what you were discussing. It's like, there's just some use cases where, and I think that's the people component where like, it just doesn't work well. and maybe it gets there, but I do think the moniker of like AI, will solve every problem and boil the ocean with it. Maybe in the next year or two, we'll evolve past that, right? Where it is similar to what you said, much more focused use cases, which leads a little bit into like, the aspect of, I think, a challenge of some of these companies that build AI focused products is like they forget about focusing on the customer's problem or the need, and focus on the technology. And so I think the more you can be like, oh, this is a real problem, and the more finite you can get focused and get, the likelihood of AI being able to be applied and help solve for it is going to increase substantially.
I think the key thing there is that AI is not good enough yet. It's not, right? It's still in its infancy, right? It's still a toddler wandering around trying to fix problems, right? It's not there yet. That's what I'm saying in the next few years, right? That was all very future, next few years kind of predictive. Between now and then, the key thing that I want every cyber vendor that is using an AI technology under the hood to think about is how you connect to and make sure that the human stays in the loop. Because multiple reasons. One, you can validate that the AI actually does what it's supposed to do, and you can make sure that it's operating properly and not causing problems. But two, it's a function of building trust that the AI is working, right? Because I know right now for a fact, it's either 94 or 96% based on Omdia's research of people that we talk to say, we want automated remediation in our environment today. And then when you double click and you ask them, well, what does automated remediation look like to you? They say, well, it's only on dev, only on these operating systems, only valid if I validate it with a human in the loop. And I'm like, well, you're not automating remediation. But that's okay.
Right.
That's the key thing, right? Is between now and what they want, we have to get them to build trust while that toddler is turning into a teen and eventually an adult and becomes a fully functioning human that does what it's supposed to do. So we got time. We have time.
Well, I like that take, because the validation component of it is essential, right? Like, is this a real threat, or is this like something that can wait, or is it something that I need to plan for, or is it something I need to go out and proactively go and hunt it to get more answers, right? And I think there's all these different questions that an analyst has to ask him or herself in the face of something like that, right? As a defender. And I think it gets a little, I mean, the way that I'm seeing a lot of the market start to kind of like take shape around AI is like, if AI is in the name of the company, like AI is in the brand, like it gives you a different flavor, but it doesn't necessarily like differentiate you, as they say, in terms of like really being able to clearly articulate the problem you solve for your customers. It was one thing that we were talking earlier, Tyler, and like, when we ran into each other at the cyber marketing conference last week, like that was one of my takes on my presentation there, which was, just because you say it, it doesn't mean it like means something, right? Like, just because you say the words AI and it's part of you think that's how you differentiate, it's not really getting to the problem that you solve.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. Like, it would be equivalent to someone saying, hey, I built this really, really killer product, and hey, it's built on a cloud platform. Who cares? That's a back-end thing, right?
Like, it uses MySQL.
Right. It's like, that's a back-end thing that buyers don't. I mean, they may care, maybe like, okay, is it on Amazon or GCP because like costs or whatever, but maybe it's a bad analogy, but you get the point. Like, that's a back-end way to achieve an outcome. Buyers want outcomes. They want risk reduction. They want lower vulnerabilities. They want things being found faster. They want better prioritization. They want things being fixed quicker, right? Like, they don't really care if it's AI driven. The only reason they care if it's AI driven right now, and why people are leaning into that as a marketing buzzword, is because it's fresh and it's something new, right? I think just like cloud kind of faded into the background when you're built on cloud, I think AI will eventually too, because everything will be AI, or at least the bulk of the powerful platforms will be AI. Yeah. So, and the other thing I'll tell you is like, everybody's using it now because it's drawing funding. Like, you got to also keep in mind, like, there's a certain amount of marketing that is done to market to the buyer, and then there's a certain amount of marketing that is done to market to the market or to the investors, right? And so you have to balance that too. If you stamp if you get rid of .com and turn it into .ai, you can raise $100 million in a week, right? So
the adjustment, and I've seen this at many companies, right, where CEOs are going to get investment, they get investment, and the board and the advisors and investors are like, you have to say this messaging. And it kills me, right? And I've had to fight this battle many times, being someone that has helped build go to market, because it's like, no, this actually happened at one company I was involved in, where the investors said, hey, you have to position this way and say these things because that's what we invested in. And that actually didn't resonate with any of their potential customers, and set them back for a long time because they were trying to please the investors instead of actually, driving awareness to potential customers.
Yeah, one thing I say when it comes to positioning and messaging, well, two things. One, a good leader usually has a pitch deck for raising and a pitch deck for selling, and they often are not the same thing, and that's okay. And then the other thing
you need your analyst pitch deck too.
Yeah, well, no, you're not wrong. Like you're not wrong, and it depends on the analyst too. Like certain analysts, like the way I operate is my goal every day. I get on calls and it's like, how can I help you? That's literally all I care about, right? Other analysts are like, hey, how can I sell this? Or other analysts are like, how do I stack rank you against your competition? Things like that. So it is largely analyst dependent, but. One thing I want to bring up on messaging and positioning, and I said this to you guys in our little pre-show discussion. I often tell CEOs, founders, leaders of companies, the good companies don't get to pick their position. You don't get to pick what bucket you're in. And immediately they're like, what do you mean? If I make this product and it does these things, it's in this bucket. And then the answer is maybe. You might be right. But at the end of the day, analysts don't actually get to pick what bucket you're in. The good ones don't anyways, because the way you pick your positioning is by listening. Positioning is a listening exercise where the audience, the buyer, tells you what they're shopping for. And then that's what you position as, right? Like, for example, if you want to sell, hey, I just made this really cool product that's a 4-cylinder combustion engine with a steering wheel and big brakes on it. That's what I sell. But the market's saying we want to buy a car. Guess what you made? You made a car.
It's a car.
Go sell the car, right? Mm-hmm. Don't sell the combustion engine with steering wheel. You sell what the market tells you to sell. And so that's my biggest recommendation on positioning and messaging.
I love it. It's a great take. By the way, I do have to let's come back to it, but I do have to tell you we have some interesting experiences. I've experienced how fast you can drive. When you were driving me around in my little emergency situation that I had to deal with in Raleigh, I will tell you about my new car. It's like I haven't gotten it yet, but it is going to be a little bit of a semi midlife crisis type of buy.
Let's go! I can't wait.
But we'll come back to that. So, in the vein of the show notes here, you talk to a lot of enterprise buyers, right? And there's some trends that you can certainly pick up on, and that I'm sure you have picked up on, based on the level of inquiry that comes in, the number of briefings that you sit in on, the number of clients that you help. Give us an idea of like something that's like maybe even kind of shocking to you and for the listeners on what's the most interesting and perhaps shocking thing that you've heard from enterprise buyers from a trend line standpoint.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I love that question. So one of the things that we do at Omdia is we actually conduct surveys, buy-side surveys of our markets. So we go ask hundreds, 300, 400, 500 organizations, individuals about specific, 40, 50 questions on my particular market. And I do that 3 or 4 times a year on the different areas that I cover. So I get to see some pretty unique trends. And the one thing that never ceases to surprise me is the overall lack of immaturity of cybersecurity, buy-side cybersecurity. And what I mean by that is we as marketers and innovators and creators of new technology always want to push the envelope and be seen as pushing the envelope. And quite often, the buy side doesn't need anybody that pushes the envelope. They just need somebody that solves a basic problem. Mm-hmm. And so that is one trend that I have learned since I've been diving in the last year at Omdia into the buy side. As far as like specific trends that I'm seeing in markets themselves, really, like I said, there's only two outcomes that they even care about right now, and that is better prioritization. They don't care about finding more stuff. They have enough stuff. They're getting buried in security debt, incredible quantities of security debt, compounding security debt at that. So what they're saying is, give me a better prioritization engine so that the important stuff gets done first, and then give me a way to fix it faster. That's it. If we can fix faster and prioritize, you're going to make my life way easier. And so those are the biggest trends from the exposure management side. From the offensive side, this is where it's, I think, going to get exciting in 2026. Again, it comes down to pulling that speed through and how offensive technologies are going to feed into that prevention and predictive loop. That's going to be a crazy cool trend to see. At the end of the day, I think we're going to see some offensive consolidation, because a lot of the offensive technologies provide similar value props, and people are tired of point solution. Platformization is real, whether what people want to admit it or not. And I believe we'll probably see some consolidation on the offensive side, maybe even seeing chunks of that fold into the exposure management side next year.
Cool.
Interesting. So like if you thought about like the way that like threat intelligence sort of like layers into that, as you know, we're doing some interesting things at VulnCheck, but like how do you see intelligence like playing into that, like from the standpoint of, are we ever going to get to a more intelligence-led approach in cyber? Are you seeing that happen in front of your eyes right now?
Yeah. Because if you think about it, what is the one thing that's drastically changed outside of AI in the last, let's call it 3 years? And that's data collection, cyber-related telemetry, data collection, actions, asset data, intelligence, threat intelligence. The quantity of our cyber data has skyrocketed. We have metrics that show that that's on an exponential growth curve. All right, well, that's really cool. That comes on the back of the fact that everything's API derived now, and we can have actual systems that pull that together and automate the collection, et cetera. That's cool in and of itself. But you know what, if you take your collection and make it exponentially grow and understand the relationships between that data, what you've created is the foundation for human thought, the basics of relationships and how these things work together, so that when you apply AI over that type of framework, wow, we're in an explosion potential moment. Threat intel is part of that corpus of context that we pull together, and context is the oil that fuels the AI engine as we move forward. So I think threat intelligence is one piece of that contextual explosion that we will continue to see grow as we move forward. I think threat intelligence will find its time in the next year.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I agree a bit on the offensive security side. I think with what we do, it's very complementary to the many things that we're doing. But if you're standalone only doing offensive security, I think that actually becomes a competitive differentiator when rolled into some of these traditional players. Specifically, I think you mentioned exposure management side. So yeah, I could see that happening totally.
Yeah, the context is growing, right? And the value of that context grows. It's actually what's driving massive M&A, and it's also what's driving the platform moves, is because we've got the cybersecurity software is three things: data in, analysis engine, action out. That's literally all every technology is. And what we've done is we've begun to unify the data into these groupings of large quantities of data that you're changing the analysis engine that you overlay on top of it, right? An exposure management one or a GRC version of it, but it's still the same core of data, right? That is driving a platform. That means that a platform will come over the top of that, and we'll start to see markets converge. And so I think that some of the value of the threat intel in the offensive data set is very complementary to the exposure management data set, putting it into a position where it could unify within the data storage, within the fabric that underpins the platform.
Just kind of shifting gears a little bit, Tyler, give us an idea of where you see the vulnerability management market in general, like, and more specifically the CVE program. I mean, as you know, we're hyper involved in that world. We're a threat intel company, but we live in the vulnerability and exploit world. How do you see that shaking out next year? Because we know that the data is too slow coming from NVD. We know that there's not enough known exploited vulnerabilities that hit sysakev fast enough for defenders to really use and to action with. Give us your thoughts on that, because I'm sure you've been tracking it.
Yeah, I've been tracking it for sure. And I will say, when I'm thinking about these types of questions, you're the guys I go to. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right? Like, you guys are one of the companies that are so involved and so knowledgeable about it that it's like, where do I find my data to make my intelligent analysis? I go to you guys as a source. So I want to be clear. You probably know about this much more than I do. But that all being said, I don't feel that the discovery of additional vulnerabilities, or in particular CVEs, is all that super valuable to risk reduction, because it's yet another piece of hay in the haystack that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. It's still mandatory. It's still table stakes. It still needs to be fully automated. But the value on most of the CVEs and individual vulnerabilities we find comes when we can contextually connect it to our universe as a buyer, and understand how it impacts us and how our assets have things, don't have things, and then how we fix it in an automated way with an agent going and taking care of it. That's when things get super valuable. So I am very pro CVE in the sense of, we cannot get rid of it, right? We have to make sure we find everything that we can. But at the end of the day, the customer kind of doesn't really want to pay for that. What they want to pay for is things getting fixed, right?
Yes.
So I love it. I think it's like part of the buttresses of a bridge, right? It's part of that, something that stands that building up. It's a foundational component. It was disturbing when I saw how far behind NVD had gotten and all of the things that you guys had disclosed. That scared the hell out of me, not going to lie, right? Like, and I went to Patrick with a couple of questions back when it happened. I was like, how is this really impacting us? And look, we can talk political impact of this. We can talk government pushing it, things like that. But at the end of the day, this is a foundation that absolutely has to be there, because so many other technologies stand upon it.
To talk a little bit about the themes, and I think people don't realize, like, correlation with product to vulnerabilities happens with things like Perl and CPE, which we do a ton of work on. But like CPE, the primary driver of it was NIST NVD. And so that's why, for us, we're like, this is not good. This is bad for downstream consumers, because essentially, like, without this, most of the tooling, which people don't know, relies on this silly thing called a CPE string, which you can debate, like, it has its inefficiencies, flaws, but that's how most security product tools have processed data for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But what I was going to comment on a little bit further is, it's almost been 2 years, I think this February, since the NVD basically got defunded. Or lost funding and lost resources. And, they're still working. CISA's doing some work on their side, but generally, like, I mentioned when this happened, like, the CVE program in NIST NVD globally is a competitive advantage for the US. Not politically, like, just stating, like, this program and these services running is in the interest of everyone globally. And I think now we're going into the next phase of the result of a lot of this behavior. And I say behavior because I think there were a lot of real choices made by people that was bureaucracy that have devalued and caused other people to say, hey, look, we can't rely on this. We need to go spin something else up. So now I think, the challenge that we're going to see more and more people facing is the fragmentation of this ecosystem, where is CVE still the go-to? Regulations now changing in Europe. You have ENISA EUVD. You have many, many other initiatives globally spinning up new vulnerability databases. The fragmentation's real now. And, you have money behind these projects, which is great. And I think diversity is great. But, like, once again, it makes it more difficult for the consumer, because now they have to source from many different places to get a complete, view of the world. And it's frankly, like, that I don't find that as a great thing. we're in the bad business and have been for a long time of data collection, post-processing, all that stuff, which just makes more work for us.
Right. And on top of that, the other layer, Patrick, is like all these different scoring systems that exist across all of that as well too, right? Like it makes it that much more fragmented when you're looking at things like EPSS and you're looking at like the CVS, like the different CVSS scoring. It makes it more complicated.
Yeah, I think on the consumer side, like, I think there's value in different indicators or different things, but as a consumer, you have to understand the nuances of all these different things. And so I think common language is becoming more difficult, from that perspective as well, because like what you communicate or say about things from one organization to another, from one product to another, like things are incredibly subjective.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, for good or bad, I think like we're going to continue to see that aspect of fragmentation, which, I think it creates a lot of opportunities for additional value. But once again, Tyler, back to your point, like more data to consume.
Right. Yeah, I do think like when we talk about the scoring side of this, and I would love your guys' opinion on this because you're more educated than me, but in my semi-limited opinion on this, I think scoring across the board when you're looking at the vulnerability data is completely worthless. And the reason I say that is because without context, it really doesn't matter what the scoring of a particular vuln is. And so it's the context and how it relates to you that makes the score valuable. Now, the problem that brings is where is that analysis occurring? It's occurring in each of the individual tools, which dictates the fragmentation of scoring because each one has a different process for enrichment and determining the particulars of the context. So I don't have a great answer for how to do scoring well. As of right now, it's unimpressive to me. But I think each buyer has to look at the individual tool stack that they're using and say, how do you score? And am I okay with that version of scoring? Because at a vulnerability level, the scores are kind of worthless to me as an individual.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, from my opinion on the scoring side, like the metrics in CVSS are valuable in understanding characteristics of a vulnerability.
Sure.
But, at one point, I think some people in the SIG at CVSS mentioned like we're considering getting rid of a base score. And I'm like, that would be great. And you would just provide a metric string and, everyone moves on. But ultimately, it's like, everyone freaks out because there's so much demand to call everything a 9 or a 10 or a 7 or a 6 from that respect. So I have a GitHub project I started collecting every time someone introduces me to a new score. I don't know. I should check right now. It's like the last time I checked, I don't think I've been adding, I add them as I come across them. But yeah, I'm like, now I'm kind of curious, like, oh, I wonder how many...
To put a fine point on it while you're looking that up, Patrick, I will say to directly answer the question that started this conversation is I think we need some kind of government interaction that makes this a mandatory thing. Do I think we'll ever get it? No. But it's just not going to bubble up as an important enough problem all the way up to make it happen, and that's a bit sad.
Hey, I do think on the European side, like organizations that are in Europe are going to have to comply with the CRA, which forces disclosure of vulns publicly, forces exploitation disclosure, upstream information, right? More information once again, but I think that could help contribute and provide additional value. But yeah, I mean, the US, like they came out and did a pledge for cybersecurity companies. And it's like, dude, we don't need a pledge. We need people to actually be accountable.
Yeah,
that's right.
And there's just ultimately a lack of accountability stateside for cybersecurity in general.
Yep.
So, okay. You want me to count these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. There's about 50, 60 scoring systems you can choose from.
Okay. And I'm sure they're all within like a tenth of a point of each other, right? Mm-hmm. They're all very close.
No.
It's unreal. Well, let's shift gears a little bit, Tyler, to one of our final points today, which is you work with students, right, in a graduate program at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. I participated with you a couple of times in some entrepreneurship programs that you run with students. Why did you start getting into that? What's it doing for you? And how are you thinking about how students are coming out of that specifically today to make a difference, to really strive for innovation in what they're doing and what they'll do professionally once they're done with the program? That's
a great question. So I actually retired just about a month or two ago from this, but I was teaching the course that I taught there was how to grow a high growth startup, which when I talk to all of my friends and career colleagues for the last 25 years in cyber, everybody assumes I'm teaching a cyber course. They don't really realize that I'm teaching just a general business growth course, which is really kind of something that I've been passionate about for probably, since 2012, when I graduated from the same program I'm teaching in. So that's kind of how I came into it. I came through the entrepreneurship program at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, studied under my mentor, Ted Zoller, who was running the entrepreneurship program when I came through. And then he gave me the opportunity to teach one of his classes on his behalf. And so it's really an exciting thing for me because at the end of the day, I learned a lot about cybersecurity foundations, masters in computer computer science focused on cybersecurity, did the R&D thing. And then kind of like career-wise, I kind of fell out of love of the R&D side for a little bit, right? And it was like, where do I go from here? I always wanted to follow my passion. Went back to business school and said, I'm just going to do startups. I'm going to focus on startups. And so it kind of brings a unique flavor as an analyst where I can help people strategically grow the startup and understand how it connects to the cybersecurity world foundationally, technically, right? And what I love to do is just get these younger folks excited about what their next stage in that high growth startup universe was going to look like. Get them excited about building a go-to-market, get them excited about being a program owner or a product owner, get them excited about working towards even founding their own thing and creating their own thing, because that's what excites me. So I've enjoyed that for the last 3 years, got to teach a number of really, really great students that have come through the program. And thank you, Tom, for helping me and participating as some of my guest lecturer and challenge sponsors for some of those years. So thank you, my friend.
Of course, man. Yeah, listen, I mean, I had a blast doing it. It was really interesting working with some of your students too. And, some of the things that they came up with to solve specific problems in terms of like really articulating how they solve that problem for what they're trying to strive toward it was just really interesting. I was honored that you even asked me, but it was like, I had a great time with it. And it's just kind of interesting seeing like, it's kind of a different mindset today as a student. It's not, oh, I have to go to this class, I have to do these things, I have to check these boxes. And I'm seeing it play out right now with my 17-year-old who's, just got accepted to 2 more colleges today. They're thinking about it a little bit differently, and they're thinking about it like more in a more targeted way where, we're like, from my perspective, you look at like the youth of today, right? Like I sound super old saying that, but they're, it's like they've got tech neck, right? Because they're on their phone nonstop. But what I'd say about this generation is that they're looking at things much more strategically and much more differently than we did. I mean, like when I went into college, my hair was like the length of Patrick's, right? And my biggest goal was to get, was to have my lax flow so the hair looked cool hanging out of my lacrosse helmet, right? Like that was like my only goal at all, like lax flow on point. I could have cared less about what I was doing, but now I'm seeing this through the eyes of my high school senior, and she's super, super targeted and very deliberate about the things that she's doing and the things that she wants to do. And I'm going, oh my God, like I completely underestimated this generation in so many ways.
Yeah, and I trust me, I've gotten the lax lettuce hair flow students too. Like I've had those too, but they are few and far between compared to most of the students I've had the pleasure of teaching. And I will say I'm blessed in the sense that I'm teaching a master's degree program, right? It wasn't an undergrad program, which might have a little bit higher of versions of young Tom in there.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, I think lessons wise, because I also have two children in college too, and lessons wise, it's just a different world in the sense that you have the world at your fingertips with AI. You have the world at your fingertips to answer any question that you need. There really is no reason for someone not to try to tackle something that might feel difficult or hard for them, because it's easy to find answers, where before we would have to go find books, and when I did undergrad, I didn't even have the internet. So, I'm popping in the library trying to find books and some old mentor that's 80 years old to give me the clue on how to do it. Look, it's just and yes, I feel old too, saying all this, but it's a different world in the sense that data availability and the ability to answer questions quickly puts students today in a spot where they can just do amazing things from an output perspective.
It's so true, and they don't have to rely on microfiche.
Thank God. Goodness, thank God.
That's Good before Lord. My time, even.
It was brutal trying to find things, like rolling through the records and trying to find the things on a microfiche machine. My Lord, it was awful. Terrible.
Thank you so much for attending this episode of Two Old Guys and a Cool Skater Kid.
So true. Showing your age. It's you can't fight being old, right? You can only try to impart some wisdom in certain areas. But
that's right.
Tyler, super fun conversation today, man. Thank you so much for being with us. So much fun. Thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Anytime, guys. I love talking to you guys. Like I said, I love connecting with people that are smarter than me, and I'm going to keep coming to you guys for help on a lot of stuff. And have a wonderful 2026. I look forward to working with you guys as we move into that year.
Cool. Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. That's our session for today. Stay tuned for our next episode. And once we get this out, we'll keep the train rolling with the people who matter when we're talking about countering emerging threats. Thanks, everybody.